In his press conference, Jason Garrett has said that Tony Romo is not out for the year, but that he's day to day. However, Chris Mortensen and Adam Schefter, both at ESPN, they have both had sources tell them that indeed Romo is out for the year. And Mortensen has had a source tell him that there is a herniated disc in his back, which will immediately require surgery. So it seems as though Romo is indeed out for the year, despite what Garrett says. So what does this mean for them going into this game against the Eagles? Well, number one, Kyle Orton will start, and Kyle Orton is a serviceable backup, but he is a backup, and this game becomes a lot more difficult for not only the offense but the defense as well. You look at the defense, who has struggled to say the least, and yes, Sean Lee has not been in the lineup, but even with Sean Lee in the lineup, which Sean Lee says he will play on Sunday, but we're not really sure quite yet. It will depend on if he practices this week or not. Even with Sean Lee in the lineup, this Dallas defense is not very good. They're last in the NFL in yards per game allowed, and against an Eagles team that just piles on the yards and put up 50 against the Bears last night on Sunday Night Football. This is an offense that just goes and goes and goes and gets touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, and they'll be going against the Dallas defense, who gives up touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Um, the Eagles defense gave up 11 points last night to the Bears. The Cowboys defense gave up a score on every single drive of the game when they played the Bears. So therein lies a difference between the two defenses. But offensively, the Cowboys will need to run the ball. They haven't been running the ball enough recently. You look at their game against the Packers that they just collapsed. And they had 7.5 yards a carry, but only ran it 18 times. That will not be the case against the Eagles. It can't be. With a backup quarterback, even though Orton is a backup quarterback and he's serviceable and he's had experience starting, he's a backup. And he doesn't have the reps, and he hasn't been with the first team in practice, so you have to really ride DeMarco Murray until you can't anymore. Maybe he gets exhausted and he can't move his legs anymore or something like that, but there's no excuse for the Cowboys to not just pound the ball on the ground play after play after play. And for Orton, yes, he's a good quarterback and he's a good backup, but he's not going to come in there and just set the world on fire. He's definitely not Tony Romo, and you never know with backups. Maybe he comes in and he finds lightning in a bottle and he plays really well for a game against him in the playoffs, but you can't count on that if you're a Cowboys fan. The bigger implications here are Jason Garrett and his staff. A report from ESPN's own Ed Waters said that if the Cowboys lost this game, Jason Garrett and his staff would be fired after yet another 8-8 season, the third straight for the Cowboys. So is that the case or not? This Tony Romo injury changes things, or does it? There's a chance that Jerry Jones may look at this and say, well, Romo was out, and Sean Lee was out, and so Jason Garrett didn't have his full complement of players, and so we're going to give him another shot. That's not the right decision to make. There has been constant proof that Jason Garrett's not the coach for this team. He's not the coach to lead them into the playoffs. He has terrible clock management. He doesn't even call the plays. He's an offensive coordinator. He was promoted, from an offensive coordinator to the head coach, which usually means that he's the one in control of the offense. However, Bill Callahan came in this year and took over the play calling duties. So Jason Garrett doesn't call plays on offense. He doesn't call plays on defense. He doesn't manage the clock very well. So what is his duty exactly as the head coach other than being a puppet for Jerry Jones? He doesn't have one. And as a head coach, your job should not be decided by one game. So I think Jason Garrett has a body of work that he has put together over 3.5 years. He took over as the interim coach 3 years ago after Wade Phillips was fired, and went 5-3, has gone 8-8 in the 2 full seasons since then. And if they lose against the Eagles, he will finish another year 8-8. That's 3.5 years of knowing what you have in Jason Garrett, and that's a mediocre head coach who doesn't know how to manage the clock and maybe doesn't have control of the locker room. So even if Jerry Jones says, well, he didn't have his full complement of players, and Tony Romo was out, so we're going to give him another chance. It's the wrong move, and we'll have to wait and see if this Tony Romo injury does in fact make Jerry change his mind and keep Jason Garrett around for whatever reason um, beyond this year. And if they win, then you have to assume Jason Garrett's job is safe, which is still kind of bizarre. Like I said, a coach's job should never be decided on the basis of simply one game because you never know what can happen. But this Romo injury tosses yet another dimension into the Jason Garrett, Bill Callahan, defensive coordinator Monty Kiffin, into the whole dynamic of are they going to be around next year. I think there was a pretty good feeling that if the Cowboys didn't win, if Romo was healthy and they didn't win and get into the playoffs, that Garrett was gone, even though Jerry Jones has said that Garrett would stay. But now that he's out and the Cowboys are probably going to lose this game, barring a minor miracle, number one, they're the worst team. I'm sorry, the Eagles are the better team, and the Eagles have their starting players, and the Cowboys do not, especially at the quarterback position. The odds are definitely against the Cowboys. So if Garrett loses this game and goes 8-8 again, misses the playoff again, I don't know what Jerry can say to keep him around, even without Romo. Even with Romo, I don't think they win this game against the Eagles. The Eagles are playing too well, the Cowboys are not. So if this Romo injury changes everything for Jerry Jones, then expect to see Jason Garrett back next year, along with the rest of his coaching staff. So we'll have to wait and see what the long-term implications of this Romo injury are. But for right now, he will be missing the game on Sunday against the Eagles, it looks like, with a herniated disc that needs surgery. And we'll have to wait and see what the far-reaching implications are of that injury, not only for the Cowboys, but for Jason Garrett and the rest of his coaching staff as well.